Yo, what's going on, guys? Back again today with another one, Lil Nas X Panini VFX breakdown tutorial, whatever you want to call it. If you guys are new here, I'm a director and editor. My name is Max. Let's go ahead and get right into it, guys. As always, leave a like, comment, subscribe if you do enjoy the content. So quickly before we actually start watching the video, I just want to point out they did a great job crediting everyone involved with this. It's sometimes rare for large labels to do this, so it's nice to see, and it can actually give us some good insights into how the video was made. So directed by 𝐏𝐑𝐄𝐒𝐄, story by Lil Nas, starring Sky Jackson, I'm pretty sure from Disney Channel. Production company, Lord Danger. This is the same production company that did that Little Skies and Young Pinch Nightmares music video. I really like that one a lot. I'm pretty sure 𝐏𝐑𝐄𝐒 directed that one as well. So you have some nice production, you have some nice directing. Now, I also want to point out we have our motion capture credits here. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. I also want to say that in the VFX artist, 3D artist, you'll see all the people that are involved with something like this. You have two compositors, you have a lot of graphic artists working on the titles and maybe some of the HUD elements that were in this. You have your VFX artist, your 3D artists, your editors who are just sequencing. In terms of VFX artists, this name sticks out to me, 𝐏𝐑𝐄𝐒𝐄𝐒 or 𝐷avid_Ariu. This is my first watch of this music video. I was already going to point you guys to a tutorial 𝐷avid_Ariu, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, already has on YouTube. So if you go to the iDesign YouTube channel, there's a bunch of really awesome 3D tutorials, and a lot of them are hosted by the guy who worked on this. So we'll talk about this tutorial he made later, but for now, let's start here. We'll talk about it more as we go along. So let's play this out. So the first initial thing that I like about this, and this is the reason why I'm excited to break this down, is the whole overall vibe of this. They're going for this ghost in the shell kind of visually striking futuristic vibe, which I really like a lot. I think there's so much you can do with it. I've always loved things that look like this cool futuristic vibe. And as a visual effects artist or as an editor, as a director, coming up with the concepts, you have so much to work with and so much you can go around to really create a striking visual like this. So some of the elements we're going to be talking about, and we're also going to be showing you later on, like I said, the effects where you can recreate some of this yourself. Just the basics of creating some hologram stuff, being able to track it to the walls. Most of this music video was shot in a green screen studio, so where you see her sitting here just looking out towards this kind of cityscape, this is all in 3D, and we're going to talk about creating that 3D city later on throughout the tutorial. But Sky Jackson actually posted this nice little behind the scenes vlog, and it gives us a good look into what the set was like. So here's basically what that looks like, where you have the ledge, you have your lighting matching, you have this kind of soft reflection going onto her face, and then you have your green screen with these little track X's here. We'll talk more about that later, but just giving you a rough idea of what it's like to work with the green screen, compositing, VFX, all the before mentioned names that worked on this, and how it can coincide in the workflow. Now, not only am I going to show you a lot of the hologram stuff, I want to show you kind of this 3D rotating text. I'll show you like the textured kind of digital looks that's going on here. I also want to mention some cool things like the little animation going on here, this outline animation. There's going to be a lot of really cool tips and tricks later on in the tutorial section, so I'm excited for that. There's so much, like I said, you can go through. Now, this itself isn't 3D. There's of course 3D tracking, adding in these 3D elements, but going back to the vlog that I was talking about that shows the behind the scenes, you'll see that I'm pretty sure the only in real life sets are the street and the airplane scene, which is going to come a little bit later. So I'm going to turn the volume up for this, and this is probably one of my favorite parts about this video. One thing that I think they did very right with the editing and just the overall idea. So the beat drops in the song translate very well into the video, and that's one thing that can really take your videos to the next level, being able to edit to the music and keep the music in mind when you're creating a visual like this. When you have that beat drop for the first line of the song, the first initial intro pops up, we have a lot of this cool particle stuff. Like I said, we'll cover all that later on. And another thing that I want to mention that we're going to talk about later on in Adobe Premiere, even some of these subtle camera shakes that help put you in the moment. I'll play that back one more time just so you can see. But like I said, editing to the music, matching that camera movement. So some cool stuff going on here, some 3D tracking, green screen studio, performance things. We'll talk a little bit about this glitching. There's mixtures of pixel sorting. You can do stuff with the car dance effect in After Effects. I talked about Ghost in the Shell before. Anime from the 80s. Also, Akira did this very well with this kind of futuristic holograms everywhere type of look. Now, here's a large part in the song. There's two main things that I want to talk about in this segment because it's a large segment with the song. So first off, you have these dancing robots which are matching his movement completely. Now, the way that you're able to do that is using a motion capture suit. And what a motion capture suit basically does, it allows you to track any kind of movement that you're doing, take that tracking information and place it in your computer, in your 3D software, and then you can apply that tracking, that movement, any kind of 3D element character that you like for example this robot. So he's able to wear a motion capture suit on set in the green screen studio. They can capture that motion capture data, and then they can have all these people dancing behind them as robots. It's pretty cool. If you guys follow Corridor Digital, they do a lot of stuff with the motion capture suits, a lot of great tutorials there. So any relevant links to that will be in the description. The second thing I want to mention with this segment, and it's another thing they do great, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but the camera shakes. The camera shakes are really great. As you see, whenever they're going through those movements, you have this really mechanical, locked on camera changes that matches along with the sound design, the robots behind them, the beat. So it's pulled off very well. And I'm going to talk a little bit later on about artificial ways you can use camera shakes within Adobe Premiere, just using some keyframes. I'm also going to talk about some ways you can do it in camera, like setting your camera up on a tripod, having a high shutter speed. There's a lot of things you can do to create this kind of cool look that matches along with the choreography and the dancing. And even here, whenever he does the little fist bumps towards the camera, you see you have some little keyframes just kind of changing around the scale. I have presets like that on my website, but subtle things like that we can do in Adobe Premiere, where even if you're not a VFX wizard, you don't want to get into the crazy stuff, you're still able to take that away to help with the editing and the music. So the plane scene here, we got some cool little 3D tracking going on to there, so that's pretty interesting. But the main focus of this is going through the window. So you get a nice little zoom effect going on, and for all we know, this could actually be two different compositions where they basically just have the window cut out and then him with the plane. Of course, filmed in a green screen studio for basically all the parts where he's doing anything crazy. So pretty cool transition. Her closing the window, I actually thought that was pretty cool visually. And then, of course, all these ads pop up here. We move along, more dancing. I think she eventually jumps out the plane, something like that. This is some cool camera movement part here. It's nice that they're able to mix in these different mediums of these kind of backed away shots of showing an environment, and then of course mixing in this kind of hectic in your face kind of camera movement. As you'll see her reaction, and then the camera will swivel to show you what she's reacting to. So just some great camera movement overall. Jumps out of the plane, kind of reminds me of that Travis Scott music video. So Yosemite, they did something very similar where we have some stuff with the plane, and then I think eventually jumps out of the plane. To show you some behind the scenes, to give you a better understanding of how a VFX artist could create something like this where they're flying through the sky. Let's go ahead and check out the BTS again from this. So shout out to her for creating this vlog. We get a lot of cool insight as to the production behind it. But check it out. So here is the part. You have her hooked up to these cables at the top. Now the reason why they had this light flashing here, they already planned out beforehand that it was going to be this kind of stormy background environment. So being able to create this light flashing like this, they're able to actually create lightning strikes and match the lighting in the environment. So when you're on set, when you're trying to do this crazy green screen stuff, be sure to match the environment as best as you can. You'll see that they have all these little crosses around all of these green screen parts. The reason why they have these little markers and crosses, you'll see there's X's here, crosses here. This is just giving the VFX artist a little landmark to place any kind of motion tracker onto. If you had this normal green background, yes, you could just key it out, but if you're trying to actually place something in a specific area, you can use the motion tracking, place it on one of these little X's, and it just helps a lot in terms of finding something to lock onto. For any kind of flying, floating parts, we have him connected here as well. So back to the video, we're going to try and wrap this up and get to the nitty gritty, the tutorial part of this. Like I said, talking about the floating part, that rig that we just saw in the vlog could correspond to this, where you get that nice camera angle of him literally just floating in air. So we'll go over a bunch of different glitching effects that you guys can create right at home. This part's also very cool too, and I want to speak on this. So at the very end, he kind of changes all his little advertisement things to all this cool digital artwork of these trees growing. And there's a lot of different ways where you can create some cool tree growing animations within 3D softwares. I want to show you that, touch on that, give you some step-by-step guides, and even just point you out to more directions where you could create something like this. Let's go ahead and hop into Adobe Premiere. Then we're going to go to After Effects, Cinema 4D, show you guys some really cool stuff which you can create right now at home. All right, so let's start off with the basics, and then we'll work our way up to some of the more complex 3D things. So let's talk a little bit about the camera movement, some of the shake transitions, some of the things that kind of add that extra oomph into the visual matching with the song. And like I said, this is extremely important. Editing to the music, matching things to the music really helps you create an amazing final product. So just some basics. We have two clips here. I created all this in Element 3D, but it's basically just going to be placeholder clips for showing you guys some little shake transitions. So there's a few ways we can do this. Let's place our cursor between our two clips here. I'm going to hold Shift on my keyboard and just click the left arrow key twice. Control K to make a cut. and then shift, right arrow key to go back, and then still holding shift, use your right arrow key to move to the right twice. Control K to cut. We can select this area here, these two little sub clips where we want to create a transition. We can right click and we can click nest, and this is just going to pre-compose these clips into their own little sub clips. So now they're together instead of one. So now if I select that and I change anything in the effect controls here in the top left, the entire area is going to be affected by what we do. Now there's a lot of easy ways to do this. There's a lot of shake presets. It's probably one of the most common presets you can find out on the internet. If you do need any presets for your videos, my website actually has a bunch of them. They're tailored specifically for the types of tutorials that I create. So if you're interested, you can check that out. Of course, there's a bunch of other third-party ones. I have a bunch of stuff in here, so I can just look up shake and you'll see cut, shake, in. So there's presets out there if you want to invest in that to save yourself some time. If not, you can create your own little shake presets. The way to do that, let's position our cursor between here, right where our footage switches to the next shot, and we can actually just create some keyframes. So let's just keyframe both our position and our scale, and maybe we'll just drag the position to the left. We'll drag the scale up, and maybe frame by frame we can just kind of move this back and forth, something like this. As we play that out, you'll see you get this crazy kind of jittering shake. Now, of course, if you don't want this to be as jittery, you can just kind of space these out. You can space these keyframes out. The closer together they are, the more tight and jittery it's going to be. The more spaced out, the more it'll be kind of rocking like that. So just using your effect controls, using keyframing, using your motion controls here, you can easily create some sort of shakes, anything you really need to match the music. Now, of course, it's going to look completely flat and just not really matching here because I'm not matching with music. The key is to match with the music. So that's the whole point. It's not about the technique you use to get the job done. It's really about matching the music, matching the visual. For example, when we get the fist bumps here in the dance, what do you see? You see the screen kind of bump with the actual dance, with the visual, with the music. Let's create something like that. And I have a preset, of course, for this as well. I'll show you how to do it. It's super easy. It's just there to save time. So if you have the effects pack 1, I have something called bump. And it's literally just preset keyframes, which you can apply here. Space them together wherever you'd like the effect to happen. So maybe like that. And you'll see it just kind of pops at your face just like that. So if there's a beat drop, you can place something like these motion keyframes here, literally just scaling up from 100 scale to 120 and then back to 100. Simple as that. All right, so a lot of you probably knew how to do that already, but I just want to really laser it into your brain. Make sure you guys are keeping the music in mind and matching the music to the visual. That's a huge part of it, and that's what really made a lot of those dancing scenes and a lot of the other things flow as well as they did. Now let's get into another very important part of creating something like this, creating a look like this, and that's the city. Creating the city, creating the holographics afterwards, after the fact, and then matching those two together to get that augmented reality look. A few ways you can make a 3D city. I mean, you can do it in Element 3D. I've made tons of tutorials talking about that. Check out the description. There's a link below. Now, there's also a way you can create a more detailed 3D city, and that is with 3D softwares. I use Octane Render for this, as well as the actual building models. You can go on a free 3D website and find some free futuristic building models. For example, literally just pop into Google, get that Google search, and there you go. You have free 3D, Sketchfab, TurboSquid. Pop in here, search for something. If you're using Element 3D, you want an OBJ or a C4D file. It'll say there. If you're using something like Blender, then look for maybe an FBX or a Blender project file. Whatever 3D software you're using, find the corresponding file that matches that. And if you guys are new to 3D, it's really not that complicated. First thing to do is find what 3D software you want. If you want something free, go with Blender. I'm going to use Cinema 4D. I actually created this exact scene here, this city, using a tutorial by the guy who worked on the Panini video, which is huge coincidence because I was going to show this as an example before I read the description and figured out he worked on it. So smart move hiring him on their part because he's already shown that he can create some cool futuristic cities through this tutorial. I know he has one Ghost in the Shell effect tutorial as well, so I don't think there's any point in me literally just repeating his words. So follow that tutorial if you want the step-by-step for the city. Follow my Element 3D tutorials if you want to start a little bit at the beginner stage. So I'm going to assume that you've already made the city that you want and you want to start tracking tracking these cool holographic elements onto it, just like in the Panini music video. Or maybe you don't have a city, maybe you don't do any 3D stuff, but you still want to know how to create these cool holographic effects. You can track them into normal footage. Let's hop into After Effects. We're going to use a clean plate of this city shot that I have here, and we're going to start compositing stuff onto it. Alright, so let's get into some cool stuff. Let's work on some of these little glitchy augmented reality effects. Now, normally we would start with just the blank plate of just the city here without any of this craziness added in. Unfortunately, I lost my old hard drive, which had all the project files for this, all the renders for this, so I only have the final product from Dropbox. So it's fine, we can still motion track and just keep adding onto this. But we got some cool stuff already. We got some jellyfish, we got some other cool things popping out, we got some text on the walls. Let's go over how we can track this, add the elements, add the hologram look, and then add the after touches like them popping in and out, some outline stuff, some cool text stuff. Starting with the motion tracking. If you're doing this with a city, the motion track should be a breeze, because with the city there's a lot of edges to grab onto. Right click on your footage, you go to track and stabilize, and you go to track camera. Now this is going to analyze it, After Effects will do its thing, and hopefully we get a nice clean track out of that. While that's doing this, I just want to shoot off some quick little tips that'll help you on set. You want to have nice smooth footage to be able to track this correctly so that you don't have any glitching with your 3D elements. Make sure there's not a lot of motion blur in your shots. Make sure you turn your shutter speed up to get that kind of nice crispness. Having motion blur will kind of mess up being able to track onto specific parts. Also putting X's with tape, track marks, dots, anything that you can use to give you a placeholder for the track will help as well if you are using real life footage, or anything like a close-up of a face, hand for CGI. Alright guys, so once your camera track goes through, you can go ahead and just select your clip, go up to your effect controls, you can click on your 3D camera tracker, and you'll see all these super cool little 3D track points as we go along here. So step number one, what you want to do is scroll to the video and find a place where you could place an element. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and maybe place something on the right side of this dome here. So use this cursor. You can go ahead and right click once you found a good spot you want to place your element, and you can click create solid and camera. Alright, so once you have your solid in the place that you'd like, you can scroll through and see if the track is doing okay. Now we're just going to replace the solid with our element, and you can use a 2D element, a 3D element. I'll even show you how to kind of extrude a 2D element so it looks like a 3D element. So let's get right into that. So first off, go ahead and right click on your track solid, and you're going to want to pre-compose it, and you can name this whatever. If you already know what element you want to place here, you can label it as that. I'll just name this hologram 1 and click OK. And now we can double click and go into our pre-comp. We can delete the track solid out of there. So essentially what we have now is a composition that is a placeholder in that tracking area that we selected. So I'll check out the music video as some inspiration. I'm going to maybe add one of these little cowboy hat emojis. So I found this one on the internet. Just make sure you check out the licensing and what it says for that. We're just going to be using this for educational purposes. It says free license. Of course, you can also go through, if you are doing it 3D, you can just search for a 3D model and use Element, Cinema 4D, whatever you want. So we'll start with this, or any other green screen clip on the internet. Just find it, download it, pop back into After Effects. I'm going to drag this cowboy hat emoji animation into our project here. So I'll just drag it into our layer. Of course, this is in our hologram composition that we made with the track solid. So you'll see here it is all tracked in. Let's pop back into the comp. So first things first, we want to get rid of this black background. Let's scale this up to size. And I'm just going to look up a simple little color key. There's a lot of different ways you can get rid of a black background. You can change blending modes, you can unmalt it. Color key is fine for now. Just drop it on your clip, select the black in the background, and then just bump up the color tolerance like this. And then you can also add a tiny bit of edge feather. Great, so we have our cowboy hat emoji. So we have our cowboy hat emoji animation. This is pretty short, so I'll click Control D just to duplicate this. So basically this will just be a looped clip as I play it. You'll see it'll just start back with the animation. Now let's go back into our composition here. Now, like I said, this is 2D, so we can actually open up our transform options here. You can mess around with your rotation, your orientation. Try and get this to look however you'd like. I'm going to scale this down because it's pretty big for now. And that's looking pretty good. Say you want to make this 2D image look a little bit more 3D. There is a way we can do that. So let's pop into our hologram comp here. And what we're going to do is I'm actually going to select all of these, right click, pre-compose. So now the loop is all just in one layer. We have it all right here. Now with this layer, what we want to do is let's go ahead and click toggle switches and modes, and we're going to make that into a 3D layer by just checking this box. Change your custom view to front active camera for now. Open up your transform options for this layer. Go to transform. You're going to see your position value here. You can actually right click on that and just click separate dimensions. And then you'll see now you have your X, Y, and Z, which we can change individually instead of in 1 meter. So we just want to change our Z position. You're going to hold down Alt, click on the stopwatch next to Z position. The numbers will turn red. We just want to write index in this expression here. And that's all we need to do. So now we can select this layer. We're going to apply a levels color correction onto here and just make it a little bit darker. I'll just put the input blacks up, maybe just move this in. And you'll see why we're doing this later. Now select this layer, click Control D just to duplicate it a few times. So I Control D'd 4 times. And the reason why we're doing this, if we take our active camera, so maybe change that to Custom View 1. You can even right click down here, go to New, go to Camera, OK. And you can use the C key on your keyboard to actually just toggle through and see what this is looking like. We're going to select all these duplications and just keep clicking Control D. So duplicate it, and you'll see it's kind of extruding backwards. So Control D, Control D, Control D. It's growing back every single time we do that. And it's looking actually pretty decent as we do that as well. So if you click C, you rotate. Here's what it looks like. Now we have this 2D layer into its own little 3D comp. You can even select all these duplications here. Just hold Shift. Control D. Just make sure you don't crash your After Effects. You might want to save. And there we go. We have our own little 3D extrusion. So that's just a little bonus tip for you guys. Let's click File, Save. For our camera here, you're going to want to go back to Active Camera. You can just turn the camera off. You can also just hold down Shift, select all these layers, right click, pre-compose them into one. Just name this 3D cowboy emoji, click OK. And then you can just pop back into your main composition where we have this. To get the 3D layers to show up that we just did in here, you can just click this little sun, star, collapse transformation switch. Just click toggle switches and modes if you don't see that. Go ahead and click that and you'll now see our extrusion. So that's how you can make a 2D layer 3D if you'd like. I'm going to scale this down, so click S on your keyboard. Drop that a bit. Now we actually want to apply the hologram look onto this. So there's a few ways you can do it. There's the plugin way, or we can make it from scratch. I'm going to show you both. Really, the best plugin for creating a hologram look is Holomatrix by Red Giant. Link to that will be below. So if we go ahead and just pop Holomatrix onto our composition here, see it automatically applies the default preset. So you get some flashing, glitching, RGB, gives it that nice kind of bluish hue. We're going to go ahead and customize this. And like I said, afterwards, we'll show you from scratch. So those of you who don't want to spend the money for this can know how to do it from scratch. It's pretty simple. It's pretty basic and easy. So first off, what you want to do is let's actually open this up and just drop the opacity a bit. You don't want to have this fully, you want to have this a tiny bit see-through so you really get that hologram effect. So something around 60, 70, it really depends on the clip. And you have full controls of what you want this to do. So there's ghosting, RGB. You can use your effect controls for the layer up here. Maybe you want more damage, maybe you want whatever this does, punch it, effect scale. Unmalt, you can open up effects and literally have your switches for every single thing going on here. Glow, scan lines, maybe you don't want those. You can add a flicker just by checking that. So like I said, you have a bunch that you can really do. You can add glitch. You can even go up here and click choose preset, and they have a bunch of little presets which you can hover over and select. So you have a lot that you can use to customize and create a lot of cool different glitches. So I'll maybe put it on this preset. You'll see this will change the color back to normal. Now say you don't have the Holomatrix plugin. Let's go ahead and do this from scratch. We're going to go up and just delete Holomatrix. We'll delete color balance. Start from normal. So you still want to do the first step. We still want to lower our opacity. So we open up our transform options. We'll still have that lower. It'll be a little bit easier to see what this is looking like if we add some color. So let's go up to curves, drop that onto our clip. We're going to go over to the blue channel and we'll just bump that up, or of course whatever color you're really going for. And there we go. I mixed together curves with our color balance. I got a cool little mix of some different colors that may work well. I'm actually even going to lower the opacity even a bit more, maybe to something like 44%. Now some other cool adjustments to make this more hologramish. We can go ahead and just add a glow effect. And of course you can use third party, you can use third party, you can use preset, you can use built-in. There is a built-in glow for After Effects, so drop that on there. You may want to grab your radius, your threshold, and mess around with that depending on the clip. So I'll raise the radius a bit so it's kind of glowing off of this, and I'll also mess around with our threshold to get a nice in-between. We can also create some cool little opacity animations. So say you want this to flicker a bit, what we can do is we can go down to our transform again, and where it says opacity, we can actually select to keyframe that. And then using page down and page up on your keyboard, you can move frame by frame. So I'll maybe move by 3 frames. I'll put that at 0, and then I'll move 2, and I'll put that back at 44. Move a few, put it at 0, move a few, put it back at 44. And you can do that. You can customize your animations however you'd like. But if we play that through, now we kind of have this flickering in and out. Now you'll see we have this kind of flickering going on with our elements. If you want it to not be so kind of slow, of course you can push these together and it'll be more like a strobe. Some other things you can do to boost up the look, you can look up a little mosaic effect, and we can drop that on here. And this is a really cool one. Now, this is going to just look like normal blocks, and there's a lot you can do with this in particular. You can have it kind of glitch in, you can have it glitch out using the mosaic, or you can just grab horizontal and vertical blocks, bump that up, and just kind of make it look glitchy to begin with. So now you'll see we kind of have this like 8-bit pixel look going on. We're going to keyframe both the horizontal and the vertical for mosaic and our effect controls, and we'll put that super low. So we want it to like really glitch in. I'll maybe put this at 50. And I'll put the other one at 100. That looks okay. Page down and page up to move frame by frame. Bump up your vertical and your horizontal values just like this. Here's what that will look like. Starts off being pixelated, and it'll kind of just go into focus, such as this. Pretty cool. You can maybe even lower it a lot more with our keyframe still intact here. And here's what that looks like. That's pretty cool. So it almost looks like a pixeled blur, and then it'll kind of just pop back into normal, and then there you go. So that's how we can really get that cool technology-esque type of look for it. All right, so we made our basic design for our hologram. Now we want to kind of pimp it out with some of these cool little graphic overlays we have here, and then we're going to go into the glitchy stuff. There's a few ways you can do this. You can find some overlay packs online, and you can kind of just mix everything together. So for this one, for these little overlays, these little flashes, I actually use an overlay pack from 𝐏𝐑𝐄𝐄𝐓. I think it's one of his only paid products that he puts out. So great way to support an awesome creator. If you don't know who 𝐏𝐑𝐄𝐓 is, he does some cool glitchy Instagram stuff, a lot of cool 3D things. Check him out on Instagram. You won't regret it. Some cool things, and it gives you a lot of handmade shape layer animations which you can use. So one of my main tips for you guys is always have a bunch of different folders, libraries of elements which you can use for your videos. So I'm going to bring in some things that I have that I've just found across the internet. If you guys want, of course, check out my website. We have a free green screen pack as well as a bunch of other resources. Anything that I used here, I'll try and link in the description as well. I have some cool little glitch overlays here that we can use. You just Google glitch overlay pack on the internet. You can find a bunch of different options. So once you found your assets or you created your own using shape layers and animation, you can go ahead and just browse through them, drag them into the composition, and we're just going to mix that together with what we already have. And once we add all of this in, what we're going to do is we're going to move into some more complicated animation using the same methods I just showed you, and then we're just going to keep working down the line. And then I'm just going to show you a bunch of different glitching tricks as a whole. Then at the end, we'll get into some more 3D heavy stuff. So we have our overlay element here. First steps first, click toggle switches and modes, make that a 3D layer. You can even click on your hologram layer here, find the Z position, so click open your position. You can just click Control C, and then you can actually just paste that for your element here as well. Open up your transform, Control V to paste that. So now this will basically be lined up. So now this will have the same Z depth. So this is the back and forth depth in 3D space as our little cowboy hat emoji here. And we can just use these values to place it over, and it should all line up. Now if we actually play it through, it'll just be over our target as we have it here. Now let's apply the same steps I showed you to customize and make the emoji a little hologram for our overlays here. So we can lower our opacity, and you can add anything you want. You can rewind, and you can do the hologram from scratch, or you can use any presets, third-party plugins, whatever it is, to customize your own look. So I'm going to click toggle switches and modes, change the blending mode on this to add, so it's more like a light. I lowered the opacity for this, put it down even more. Do whatever you want, customize it however you like. Just repeat the steps I've already showed you within the video. All right, so now I'm just gonna fire off a bunch of cool little glitch tricks, some cool color tricks, a bunch of things that can help you pull A bunch of things that are going to help you in this process to making cool animated looks. After that, we're going to show you some more in-depth animated composites here, and then we're going to get into some more 3D stuff. So first off, I just want to show you this quickly. If you apply the color balance HLS effect to change the hue, I know this was originally blue, I made it more reddish. You can actually keyframe the hue in your effect controls here, move along to maybe the end of the timeline, and then you can just crank that hue up like crazy. Now if we go back to the beginning, now this ring here is going to be rotating through different colors. So that's a cool little animated keyframe look that you guys can go with. Now another cool little glitchy extrusion thing you can do is you can select whatever layer you want. So maybe the hologram one, our 3D little cowboy hat here. You can click Control D, just like what we did to kind of extrude it. You can grab your Z axis here and you can just kind of pull this forward. So check it out. Now it's kind of just extruding from the face of our original one. And if we play that, you'll see what that really looks like. And you may want to actually grab this and maybe move the X axis over a bit as well. But we can grab and we can pull the Z axis really far away from that. And now basically this kind of has its clone face kind of extruding away from it. So it's pretty cool. And like I said, we'll let the RAM preview. You can even Control D to duplicate this and just maybe lower it so it looks like there's some kind of steps going out towards it. It's kind of cool little ghosting effect. You also want to pay attention to the layers. You may want to drag that and place it below. And now let's make a little animation where this kind of pops in one by one. So what we'll do is we'll click Control Shift D and we'll make this first one pop in here. And then the second one will pop in around here. So Control Shift D to split. Delete the end part. You kind of want to make these little stairs going up. This is what it'll look like. So you have your normal face and then it'll kind of pop in level by level as you move along. So that is a pretty cool one. We'll try and scroll through there. Kind of pops in and then you can make them flicker out, delete out, whatever you want to do. So let's show you how to do some of these glitches. We want to create some 3D rotating text. I also want to create this little outline tunnel animation here. I think that's actually a pretty cool one. Then we'll talk about the glitches. So heading back into After Effects. Okay, so to create this cool tracing outline effect, there's a few ways we can do this. We can do this with a 3D layer or we can do this with a 2D layer. Now, a lot of people, they may try and do it with the 3D layer and they may try and auto trace it. There's a way you can actually select a layer and go up to Layer, Auto Trace. Now, if you're doing any kind of masking or using the stroke effect with this, you're going to run into some issues because this is a tracked 3D object. So if I did that, it could mess up the positioning of this. The easiest way to actually do this is we'll select this layer here of this cowboy hat emoji. We'll click Control D just to duplicate it. And I'm going to right click here and I'll just rename this to Outlines like that so that we don't get confused. And notice that this is still a 3D layer here. This isn't 2D. This is the exact same thing. What we're going to do is we're going to go up to Layer. We're going to go down to Layer Styles. And a lot of you may not know this is here, but you have all the layer styles which are available within Photoshop. So all of you Photoshop users, when you double click on something, you want to add a glow, you want to add a stroke. You can do that within After Effects too by going to Layer Styles. And we'll go ahead and add a stroke. Now we're going to have to change some settings here. First off, so we can actually see what we're doing, let's just hide these two layers of the actual hologram. Then we want to open up our options here by clicking on the triangle. Next, we're going to go down to stroke. And then here we can change everything up. So let's change our position from outside to inside. And then we're going to change the color to anything you like. I'm just going to go with white so we can actually show you what we're doing. Next, and this is a very important step, you're going to want to go to blending options under layer styles. You want to open up advanced blending. And then you want to change the fill opacity to 0. Anything that is actually within this stroke here is going to go away. So it doesn't matter if it's text, it doesn't matter if it's your 3D object here, this will go back to 0. We actually lowered the opacity for this layer earlier because we added that hologram effect. If you want, you can just go back to your transform options and just bump your opacity back up to 100%. And you have that. You can also select this layer, your outlines layer, go up to your effect controls, and you can change whatever you'd like it is you want. This already has a glow effect, so that's fine. We'll keep that on there. And now we can mix and match this with everything else, and you'll notice that this is still tracked in 3D space, just like everything else. If we actually zoom along here, let's show these other two layers. Let's select our outlines layer, and then you can grab your Z position here, the blue axes, and you can just pull this forward. So now you have this kind of ring that's being projected forwards, or if you want behind, you can drag the Z position down and then move the layer down to put it behind like that. And of course, you guys can add any of the hologram tricks, which I showed you earlier, onto this. If you want to just rewind the video to apply it to the lines, you can do that. We're going to get a little more in depth with it now. You can also select your outline layer, Control D to duplicate it. grab the Z position, move that back even more, move the layer and a layer below as well. And if you want, you can kind of have these pop in and out at specific times. So we'll even do that one more time. Outlines 3. You want to have these pop in after a few seconds. So the reason why I made this kind of like going down, the reason why I made this kind of like steps where we have first one pops in, second one pops in, third one pops in. If you play that animation out, it'll look like the lines are kind of moving back in Z position. So it's pretty cool. So to get a little bit more in depth with this outline effect, as we can see in the original music video, this was kind of placed on a billboard and you get something cool like that. So let's try and replicate that, and we'll give you some more tips and tricks using this kind of 3D outline, which I think is a cool effect in itself. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and create, I actually went ahead and did it before just to experiment. We're going to create this little 3D billboard here with a bunch of cool little elements, cool little glitches, as well as our glitching outline, our hologram, looks and effects, and of course it's going to be tracked to the side of a building. So we can hide that for now. We'll start from scratch here. We're going to go ahead and track it on the side of this building. So first things first, if you want to add a new element into your track scene, you go to the very bottom and select your original footage here, and then you can select your 3D camera tracker, and we're going to start from scratch. So you have your target here, your bullseye. You can go ahead and position this wherever you'd like to place your element. So let's try and find like a nice orientation for this perspective. Maybe like that. We'll right click and we'll click create solid, and it actually created a camera, so we can just delete the camera here. And I'm going to go ahead and shrink the solid. It's a little bit too big. And we're going to go ahead and just scroll through here to make sure that this is actually fully tracked into our scene. So it's looking good so far. If we scroll along here, you'll see it's stamped to the side of the building. So what you want to do next is you want to right click on that track solid and you want to pre-compose it. This is a big step. Make sure you leave all attributes in here. You don't want to move all attributes. Click OK, and we can actually name this. I'll name this Holo Billboard. And now we can go and double click into that composition here. And we can go ahead and just delete the track solid. And now we can place anything we'd like within this. So you guys can go up to composition, comp settings. Maybe you want to give yourself a little bit of room to make this advertisement. I'll make the width 1920, so it's 1920 by 1080. So now it's 16:9 aspect ratio instead of 1:1. I'm going to go ahead and just find a picture of myself to use in here. You can do whatever you want. So they probably just had full photo shoots, green screen to use for all these little animations here. And what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and click G, or I'll grab my pen tool up here. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut around here so I have an outline. I'm just going to cut myself out from the background here so I can fully design this ad however I would like. Alright guys, so we have our mask here. If we select our layer and click M, you'll see this is put on add. So it's just keeping me away from the background. What we want to do here is we're going to repeat our steps with the 3D layer object, except now it's just for a 2D tracked object. So if we go back to our comp here, you'll see if we go to the building where I selected the track solid, it's just a little picture of me floating on the building. And of course, we're going to go back and we'll add all of our hologram effects onto that. First, let's add that outline animation onto here. So double click back on our holo billboard composition. Start around the 4-second mark here because that's when we can clearly see this in our actual comp, around 4 seconds here. So click Control D. You're going to want to grab this duplication. Let's first rename it. I'll make this called outlines. And we'll just click and drag this so that it starts around the 4-second mark. So our animation for this kind of tunnel will start around 4 seconds. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go up to layer. We're going to go to layer styles and then stroke. And then we're going to go to blending options in our stroke here. We're going to go to advanced and make the fill opacity 0. So now we have a layer here with just the outline of me. And then we of course have me. And then of course we just have me. So we'll go back, we'll open our options here. We'll open our layer style options. We'll go down to the actual fill options here. So go to stroke. Go to your color. We'll make this light blue like in the music video. If you want to use it for reference, here's what it looks like. I'll move frame by frame. So it's kind of just 2D. Of course, you can even Photoshop a hand if you want to make this exact thing isolated with a mask and then keyframe it if you want to kind of have this simple movement. Or of course, you could just take a video on a green screen of you doing whatever and still use the same steps. It'll work fine. So at 4 seconds, we have our first overlay here. I'm even gonna go to my effects and presets and just look up a simple little glow. You can click and drag that onto your outlines. Go down to our blending, our layer styles, and our stroke here. Let's change that position from outside to inside, and that'll just clean it up a bit. It won't look as blown out. Now we can go up to our glow. We can increase the glow threshold. That was a super hard sentence to say, by the way. And then we can bump up the glow radius, so it's kind of just softer like that. And then if you want, maybe you can lower that a bit. It's up to you how you want to customize the ring. Now select outlines. We're going to use page up and page down on our keyboard. So find those keys on your keyboard. Click page down 4 times to move over 4 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then using Control Alt and our mouse wheel, we can just zoom in here. Select outlines. Control D to duplicate. So now we have outlines 2. Click and drag so it starts here. So now what we can do is click S to scale it up. And we could just bump it up like that. Or if you want to go into the whole 3D object way to do it, this is 2D image, so it doesn't matter. But you could make this a 3D layer by clicking toggle switches and modes. Make sure that's checked, and then you can actually go into the transform and change the Z position. But this is a 2D layer, so it's pretty much the same exact thing. So I'll just click S on the layer and I'll just scale it up. You'll see that this is actually overlaying me. So just grab outlines 2 and place it in a layer below everything. So now it's kind of behind everything. Now we can place this where we want. Let's Control D to duplicate that again. Using page down on your keyboard, 1, 2, 3, 4. Grab outlines 3 and start it there. And then click S, scale that up some more. So you'll see the pattern we're doing here. We just repeated our steps. If we drag back, here is the animation we're making. Bam, 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 like that. So check it out. Now we have this cool little 3D tunnel outline thing going on here. So in our actual Lil Nas music video, these weren't just kind of little lines that popped up. They kind of had this like holographic glitchiness to them, as you see. So an effect that's really going to be helpful here, and you could use this for recreating a huge amount of all the glitches that are in this music video, like here where there's all this channel glitching, pixel sorting. If you don't know any of these words, this is pixel sorting here. Channel glitching kind of looks like this a little bit. Any kind of that glitching, there's a great plugin. I actually made a full video on one. It's called 𝐏𝐑𝐄𝐒. I think it's a great kind of all-in-one. I think it's a great little all-in-one plugin. Not promoted, it's just what I use personally. Of course, there's tons of other options on the internet. Just look up on Google or YouTube, glitch plugin, glitch effect, glitch preset. You're gonna find so much info on how to really glitch things. But this plugin specifically. So what I'll do is I'll hold down Control on my keyboard. I'm gonna click and select all of my outline layers, and then right click and then pre-compose them. And I'll just name this outlines comp. And before I do that, I actually messed up. Control Z, I'm going to select them all but the top because I only want to do the ones that are behind me. So pre-comp them, outlines comp, click OK. And now this is still in a layer below, so it still looks the same. So what I want to do is I want to create some glitches right when it's about to kind of end. So around this area here. So I'm going to click Control Shift D at that area where I want the glitches to start. And I'm going to bring in this 𝐏𝐑𝐄𝐒 plugin. It's called 𝐏𝐑𝐄𝐒. Link will be below. And this thing, it basically has everything in here. You have your channel glitches, your color glitches, your image glitches, compression. There's pixel sorting in here. So you can do a lot. And to kind of show it better, it's kind of hard to see what it can really do on these lines. Either check out the full tutorial I made on it, or I'll just apply it onto this 2D image of me. And you'll see all of what it can really do. So this is with everything checked on, and we can change some of these off. So let's maybe take off the let's maybe turn off the image glitch like that, and then we'll also turn off this channel glitch. So now you're really just kind of left with this image glitch here where you kind of have these things kind of chopping around. So there's a lot you can do with it. If you want to have that pixel stretch, if you want to have pixel sorting, you see this pixel stretch here, just kind of drag that out. And now you'll have some pixel sorting going on, like in the original Lil Nas video. Turn on vertical sort if you want the pixel sorting to go up and down like that. And there's a bunch more you can do with this. I'll let you guys experiment with whatever plugin you're using for yourselves. So let's grab a 𝐏𝐑𝐄𝐒 and place it on the split layer here. This is where I want it to start glitching out. And I don't really like these duplications here, so I'll turn off color glitch. So that's looking cool. Let's head back into our comp. And our outline glitch is pretty much set. Now what we really need to do is just kind of make this look more like a billboard, a hologram billboard, just my head floating on a building. So double click into this comp, and we have all this gray space in the back here to really design this, which is cool. So you can right click here, go to new, go to solid, and I kind of just made like this darker, lighter purple color. And you can just drag that to the very back if you really want to have like a background. Go back and look at the actual billboard they have. So when they designed their city, they kind of had like a frame for it. But essentially, background color is kind of the same. So what we need now is we need some little HUD overlay things. And there's a few things we can do with this. Hop in After Effects. Now, what you really need to do is go on the internet and find, there's so many different resources which you can use in this instance. There's HUD packs, which you can find free or paid. There's glitch packs, where you can find these little clips. There's these mega glitch packs, which I found here. I'll try and leave links to as many of these things I'm showing you as possible, as many as the ones that I use. But essentially, all of this is just a Google search away. Just glitch pack, overlay pack, HUD element pack. If you want to save money, look for free versions. But you guys need to essentially, if you're really getting into the video editing, if you want to make some cool stuff like this, what you need to do is you need to get a folder on your computer. Mine is just called Overlays and Elements. I pinned it up here so I can always pop into it and just save all this stuff for the future. Make sure you're investing in this. It's a big part of being able to create this. Or of course, like I said, you can check out that Edward of tutorial. He goes into creating some of these elements yourself, as well as he has his own pack if you want to use some from there. So here's just some little 3D elements from Edward of. There's also this mega glitch pack, which I got from VideoHive, and then this is from Rocket Stock, HUD interface graphic elements, and this has like hundreds of different HUD elements, so that's cool for like graphs and things like that. Move it to the bottom so that it is behind everything. We can click toggle switches and modes, and we can change it, these different blending modes, so maybe put it on screen. Now just get creative with it, mix and match. I'm gonna go ahead and apply just a bunch of these different things. So let's go into my mega glitch pack. Let's grab a few of these glitch transition clips here. I'll maybe hold control and just drag in 3. So here's what that is looking like. We'll play it out. And of course it's going to be a little glitchy because we have a RAM preview. But so we have a kind of cool little holographic background going on. We need some more elements in here. So I talked about this. This was actually a sponsored video, but I wholeheartedly believe it. I'll leave a link below. It's this giant 𝐃𝐂 graphics pack. It gives you 1,500 different elements, and this will give you so much you can work with. It gives you shape elements, social media stuff, shape lines. So some cool things here. I'll just go ahead and click, and it just places in the composition. And this isn't part of any ad. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just genuinely talking about things that I would use to create something like this. So now we have a little follow meter. Of course, you guys can create this from scratch. Just look up tutorials on how to create it from scratch. But if I went into creating every single little bit from scratch, this could be like a 12-hour video. So if you want to save the money, look up things from scratch, or just try and find free overlay packs. You even have some little cool interface icons from the 𝐃𝐂 pack. You guys can really have fun with it, really apply your own creativity to it. You don't have to just copy what you're seeing. There's so much room for this in terms of 3D, glitching, After Effects tracking. There's so much you can really put into this. So the thing that will wrap this all together is going to be some HUD elements. And like I said, you can look them up for a free version. You can look up paid versions. They're all over the internet. So what I'm going to do is I'll go back to project here, and I'll import the one that I have from my overlays and elements pack. It's a pretty big one, so it may take a bit to load, but basically you want to find the After Effects interface project, drag it into your project here. Alright, so this is in. Now we're in business. We can open that up, and look, you got folders of circles, graphs, frames, extras, keyboards. There's some cool other little things in here. So let's go ahead and add in one of these like little bar graphs here that they have. So hop into After Effects, and of course, like I said, in my HUD pack there are some graphs here, and this one looks fine. Scale this in, and then this is an important step. You're going to want to go to Effects and Presets, go to Curves, and we're going to go ahead and just kind of color correct this graph. We'll make it a bit brighter here. It's not looking as good now because it's on third quality, and because I'm stacking so much in this comp that my computer's going to start lagging a bit. So let's hop back into our main linked composition, and we'll see what this is starting to look like. So it's looking pretty cool for now. Now here's how we can wrap this all together. Now we need to go back in the video, and we need to repeat the steps which I showed you earlier on creating that hologram look. So you can go back, you can use the tips I showed you for just kind of making it the manual way, or if you have the Holomatrix plugin, of course, you can just apply it onto our billboard here, and then we can grab a preset up here to actually make this look. I don't want it as blue and grainy. I'm gonna go for maybe sort of slightly glitchy, something that's not too crazy, maybe like this. Old Bad TV. I'll open up my transform options as well, and I'll just lower the opacity a bit. And now we officially have this kind of hologram screen going on. Alright, so I showed you that. Now if you want, like I said, with that HUD element pack, you can rewind the video. With that HUD element pack, you can rewind the video and follow the steps for just compositing in things with that 3D camera tracker to basically litter your environment, whatever it is you're tracking, in with elements like this, like the arrows. This is probably just dragged in from a HUD pack, and that's what really helps the environment a huge amount. Alright guys, so now let me show you how we can create this 3D rotating text, and this is a really cool thing you can do with these holographic ads. So let's get right into this, and it's actually a lot more simple than you may think. We don't need to do anything crazy with 3D. Let's hop into After Effects here. You see I've been working on some stuff with the ad that I was just showing you. We'll get into that a little bit later. I'm going to pop into my hologram billboard composition that we've been working on here, that we just showed you all the steps for. And you'll see here's what this 3D text is looking like. You'll see here is what this 3D text is looking like. I just copied what they had in the original video and made the text say, "The world is yours," and you can see it rotates around my body. First thing you want to do here is add your text. You can either click T on your keyboard or just grab your text tool in the top left. Make a large enough box so that you have room to work with, and then we'll go ahead and add our text. So I will say, "The world is yours," like from that video. Hold down Control and then click it around so you can actually see it. So now what we want to do is you can double click on your text, maybe double click it until everything is highlighted, and you can click over here on the right to this character box and design your text however you like it. So you can choose your color. For the font, I'm going with the Bugfast font. If you'd like to copy that, just Google Bugfast font, free download. You guys can use whatever you'd like. You can bump up the size of the text if you'd like. Little side note, if things start getting jumbled, just kind of stretch these boxes out so you have more room on the actual line itself. And now we're ready to create this 3D warping effect on it. It is more simple than you may think. All you need to do is go to Effects and Presets and look up CC Cylinder Effect. It's under Perspective. Go ahead and apply that onto your font. And now you'll see that you have your font in this kind of circle. And if we open up rotation in our effect controls, you'll see we can actually rotate on the y-axis to make this go wherever we'd like. So that's how we're going to add the animation. Before we do that, we need to go ahead and design this so that it's encompassing the area that we like. So first off, let's open up radius and let's kind of bump this up. We want a more wide radius, so maybe 200. And you'll see that this starts getting stretched. To compensate with the stretching, you guys can use these little boxes here just to kind of rotate and see however you'd like it. Or you can press S on your keyboard. You can also mess with the scaling. Stretch that, get that looking however you'd like. And what you need to do next is create the animation. So go and select your layer. Go up to the rotation tab under your CC cylinder. And then you're going to want to keyframe at your beginning position here, or wherever you want the animation to start scrolling around. Keyframe your rotation Y. Now scroll maybe all the way to the end of where this is going to take place, and we're just going to crank this up so that this number is around 3. And you guys can change this around depending on how fast or slow you like the animation. So if you want it to be a little bit faster, you guys can open up your transform options here, click Open Effects, CC cylinder and rotation. Your keyframe, if you pull that closer, it'll be a faster animation. If you drag this out, it'll be a more slowed down animation. So we've got that animation. If I press play, you'll see now this is rotating. That's a little bit too fast, so I may drag the keyframe out a bit. Now what we need to do now is you'll see how the text isn't really behind the place that we want. Now here's a quick and easy little fix for that. So we're going to position this where we'd like. You guys can also use the built-in positioning here if you don't want to change any of the positioning on the text, but you still want to move where it is. So what we're going to do is select our text here. We're going to click Control D to duplicate it. And I'm going to rename this "World is Yours Underneath." We're going to grab the underneath layer, and I'm going to drag it beneath the me layer. You'll see me.jpg. That's actually just the picture of me or whatever you have in there. You could have video footage. Just place that below here. So select your top text layer. And what you want to do is you want to go up to rotation. You see where it says render, change that from full to outside. And as you see, you don't even need to create a mask. It's just going to perfectly loop around because we have that layer over here, which is in the back. You'll see if I delete that, the outside is only going to show like this. But if we bring this back, this render is on full, but it's below the me layer. This top layer is just on outside, so you can easily have it rotate around any subject you like. Alright guys, so we talked about a lot of the tools used in creating this cool hologram futuristic environment. We've spoken on everything from 3D tracking, designing your holograms, doing some ins and outs like outlines or 3D rotating text. We've talked everything about the plugins to create these cool glitches. We talked about where to get or how to make a lot of the assets that go into making something like this. Now let me get into some of the nitty gritty. Let's kind of go up the ladder, some more advanced methods, and there's two in particular. The first one is going to be talking all about creating some cool wireframe animations. So as you see here, I added one in. This is completely tracked in, and this is just a little 3D model with wireframe, which we're going to talk about. Normal wireframe on a normal model without any movement, or maybe just a normal rotation. like I did here, and then we're going to talk a little bit about adding wireframe and then tracking in using all the things we spoke about before with something like this, where you actually have an animated model with that cool wireframe. So let's get into that. Select your 3D camera tracker on your original footage. Go ahead and find the position where you'd like to add something into your footage. So use your bullseye here. I'm gonna right click around this cluster, and instead of creating a solid like we have been doing before where we pre-compose it, we're actually gonna create a null. So click create null in camera, and we already have a 3D camera tracker, so delete the 3D camera tracker, the second one. And now we have a track null. So as you see, basically what a track null is, if you don't already know, it's a placeholder which is going to contain this tracking information. So both of these ways are going to involve using 3D. I'm going to do it two ways. I'm going to use Element 3D, which is built into After Effects. It's a third-party plugin by Video Copilot, and I've made a bunch of tutorials on that in the past. But aside from that, and I'm also going to link some tutorials on Blender, 3ds Max, whatever I can find for whatever 3D software you may use. Blender is free. Blender is free for those of you that may want to try that. I'll link the tutorial there. I myself will show you Element 3D and Cinema 4D. So, Element 3D first. We're going to go up to Layer. We're going to go to New, and then Solid. And we're going to name this solid. We're going to name this our Element 3D Wire Head. Now, this is just a normal blank solid. What you want to do from here is look up the Element 3D plugin. And of course, this is only if you have Element 3D. Once you place the Element 3D plugin onto your solid, you'll see if you go to your effect controls here, you have your scene setup button. Go ahead and click that. You guys can find some OBJ files, some C4D files, and import them through here. I'm just going to grab one here. This is actually from my 3D starter pack. It has a bunch of models. It has a bunch of textures. Link to that will be below, as well as everything else. So bring this in. It's basically just a female head. We can find our own texture we want to blend this with. So maybe this chrome texture here that's under physical. So now we can go ahead and open up this object and select our texture. And we can actually select this little wireframe tab. And you can enable the wireframe. And now you can kind of design the wireframe from the ground up. So you can change the width of the lines here. You can change solid, lines only, whatever you'd like. So I'm going to go lines only. I'm going to make the line color this cyan, like we did before. So I messed around with some different textures. I just used all of those steps that I was just talking about, and here's what we got. We have something pretty interesting here. Click OK when you're ready, when you're satisfied with the look of what you've created, and your little 3D object will pop up somewhere within 3D space. Since we're using Element 3D, it'll already be a 3D object. Now what we need to do is we need to track this in the place we want. We don't want this to be floating willy-nilly somewhere in our city where we can't find it. We need to use that tracking null which we created before we brought in our 3D object. So here's our little track null. Let's rename this to building tracking null. What we want to do is select our Element 3D layer here of our head. We're going to go up to group 1 or whatever group your actual 3D object is in. So you'll know by clicking scene setup, and you'll see group 1 here. You're going to want to open up group 1, like I said, open up group utilities, and then create a group null. You want to click create, and it's going to create its own little null here. And this is basically a null controller for the actual movement or motion of the head here. So let's go ahead and sync everything up. So what we can do is select our building track null, click P to open up the positioning of that. Open up your group 1 null, click P to open up the positioning of that. So what you want to do is just select the positioning of your building track null. With this selected, you click here. Click Control C to copy. Click here for your group 1 null for your 3D layer. Click Control V to paste. You'll also want to select your anchor point for your building track null. Control C. Select your anchor point on your group 1 null. Control V. And look, now it's pasted that head exactly where the track point is. And if we drag along, you'll see now that that has tracked exactly where the track point or exactly where that track null we created was placed. So that's how you can track your 3D Element 3D layers there. Super useful knowledge. And now we can actually mess around and create the look that we want. So we can actually scale everything using our group 1 nulls. And now we can actually scale it up just from here. So that way it won't change anything. It won't make it crazy. We know exactly where it's going to be. And you can also use the rotation controls here as well. So I'll scale it up to the point where I can actually start seeing some of the wireframing. I may even raise it on the Y axis a bit. What you even could do is you could keyframe this Y rotation. Now you guys can go ahead, rewind the video, use those hologram effects I've been talking about, use the glitch effects to customize this. One thing I do want to show you is how to actually blend this in with this area. So instead of it hanging off a building, we want to blend this a little bit. So what I'm going to do, and this is just an easy little trick, is I'm going to go up to layer, I'm going to go to new, and then solid, and I'm going to name this 3D wire face mask. And you can make the color whatever you want. Let's just make it black, I guess. Click OK, and then this is going to turn black. Hide the layer so we can see through it. Now with our wire face mask layer selected, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click G on my keyboard or grab your pen tool or your square tool. I'm going to create a mask kind of cutting off this edge of the screen, and as we drag along here, you'll be able to see what the mask is like in relation to our head. So I want it to kind of cut off by the shoulders. Make sure that as the screen moves along, you may have to keyframe it or just move the positioning, that this is always going to be cutting off around the shoulders. That's looking fine. What we need to do here is click M on that 3D wire mask layer, change the mask to subtract, and then we can select our element 3D wire head actual layer, the actual 3D object here, and we can click toggle switches and modes, and you see where it says track matte. Change the track matte alpha matte 3D wire face mask, and now you'll see that the mask will actually affect where we drew it here. You can't just normally mask out this 3D object with element 3D. You have to create this track matte. So now we can open up the mask here, bump up the feather. So now it's looking a little bit more hologram like. It's just kind of faded out by the bottom part. Now what we want to do is add a light source here. So it kind of looks like the head is being projected from some sort of projector source. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to create another blank solid. So go to layer, new solid, and we're going to name this one light wireframe head, whatever you want to do it so you know what you are making. Make this one a blue solid. And this is important. Make sure the color of this layer is black. Click OK. So this will change the screen completely black. You're going to want to go to effects and presets, look up a lens flare. It's under generate. Drop that on your light source here, and now we can actually change, and now we can click toggle switches and modes down here to show our blending mode. Change your blending mode to add, and that'll just have the lens flare here, which is perfect. Now in your effect controls with your light source, you can change the lens type. If you maybe want to have a blue one, you can also change the hue, whatever you'd like if you want to change the color of this, but that's beside the fact. The only other thing you want to do is you see these little targets here. Those targets are basically just controlling how much the angle of the lens flare is. So if you want to just have a light instead of like reflections going everywhere, just drag those targets into the middle. Now we can actually go ahead and track this with our track null. So click toggle switches and modes, make this a 3D layer here. So now this is moving within 3D space according to our 3D camera. Now we just need to track, now we just need to match up the positioning of this and our null. So we have our 3D building track null. We're going to do the same thing we did with the head control. Click P on it, click P on the light source to open up the position of both. Select your building track null position, Control C, select your light source position, Control V, and now our light is at our track null. We can lower this, place it kind of by the base, so now it really does look like it is being projected there. To finish that all off, I actually went ahead and added a little color balance HLS onto the 3D layer, and I just keyframed it so that it would kind of cycle through colors, make it a little bit more vibrant, and then I added some little elements here just to add some like HUD overlays over top of it. Alright guys, now let me show you how we can add in animated 3D objects using Cinema 4D, and I will leave some links below if you want to use Blender or any other type of 3D software. But we're going to create in this animated wireframe bird here. I'll show you all the steps involved with that, and then it looks pretty sick. So inspired by the bird from the original video here, I'm pretty sure this little wireframe in itself is a plugin. I'm going to show you just a stock way to do it in Cinema 4D. I'm going to go into Project, and I'm going to find my linked comp 4 that we've been working out of. Control C, Control V on that to just copy and paste that, so we're making a duplication of it in our project bin. So now we have link comp 5. I'm going to rename this to clean export main comp. Now let's find that clean export main comp, double click on it, So it's just a duplication of our original main comp. And we're going to delete everything in this composition except for our normal footage and our 3D camera tracker. So hold down shift, click, and delete. So now we are starting from absolute scratch here. These were already in the video because, like I said, I lost the original project file. Those were already included. So we're starting from scratch. Select this, select your main footage, go up to effect controls, and just to show you we haven't deleted everything, if we go back to our main comp, here everything is. So go back to our clean export comp, select your footage, click your 3D camera tracker. I'm pretty sure that the area that I wanted my bird was right around here. Going to right click and click create solid and camera. We're going to delete the second camera. We want to go up to file, export, and click max on Cinema 4D exporter. Click OK. This is basically saying that the layers won't be exported, only the track solid and the 3D camera tracker will. So it's only exporting 3D things. And as you see, I already named this before. You can just name this clean export main comp, whatever you'd like so you remember it. Place it somewhere where you can remember. I have my 3D project files folder here. Click save. Now what we want to do is we want to go and find our actual animated objects. So I made a full video talking about this before, but so on Turbo Squid, here is the one that I'm using. I literally just searched for animated flying bird. So if I was in your shoes, animated flying bird. If you want to spend a little bit more money, maybe get a more high quality something, of course you can, and you can get some nicer animations. There are options out there. If you want to use the free one, which I found, which is animated, I'll leave a link down to this below. All you need is an FBX for this, so just make sure there's an FBX, C4D, or whatever corresponding file for your 3D software. FBX will work fine for me, so go ahead and download that FBX. Once you've downloaded that, you can click show in folder. It's in my 3D objects folder here. It's just called Eagle. I'm just going to drag that into Cinema 4D, and it's basically saying I already have it open somewhere else. I'll just open it in a new one. Click OK. And here with this specific animation 3D object I have, there's actually a few different animations that you can use. So it has one kind of just flying normal, and then it has a few other things. I'm just going to go with the fly animation. Here's what the animation's looking like, and that's only within 30 frames. So we're going to do a few things first. First off, we don't need all of the lighting, everything here. We just need this, which is the actual geometry. With the texture, we're going to get rid of the texture, so that doesn't matter. And this is the actual spline or the bone structure for the animating. Hold down shift, select your object. It should look like a triangle here, and then your null with your little bone structure. Control C, and then we're just going to make a new clean project here and Control V to paste it. So now this is exactly what we want. If we press play, this is what we're looking like. Only issue here, this is only a 30 frame animation. So we're gonna loop this real quick. And this is very simple as well. So on the top right, go from startup to animation. And now you'll see these are all your little animated keyframes we have here. Select all of those, Control C, and then you also wanna click here to select that. Drag to the end, and then just click Control V, and then just repeat that. For as long as you'd like the animation to loop through. Now we can go to the top right and go back to startup. And now you can actually make this however many frames you want. So 120 maybe. Drag this out. And if we select here, you'll see our keyframes go all the way to the end, which is nice. So we have a nice looping flying animation. And this is a free one, so the animation isn't anything crazy. But for our purposes, we're adding glitches and wireframes anyway. So this will work perfectly fine. So for the wireframe, and if you don't want to do wireframe, you can do anything in the world to customize this. I've been making a lot more Cinema 4D tutorials, so just check out my channel or just search through YouTube, search through Google, customize it if you want. To do the wireframe, like I said, I think they use a specific plugin for the snappy wireframe in that video. If you know that, comment down below or comment the way they did it down below. I'm just going to show you the way that I know. Now there's two ways I know. You can either create a hair material and then just customize it through that. You can click and hold here by your arrays and create an atom array. And then you want to grab this here. I'm just going to rename this so that this should say eagle. Grab your actual geometry, drag it so that the arrow is pointing down, drop that under your atom array, and you'll see it's going to make it now out of all circles and segments, which is pretty cool. And if you like this look, you can actually leave it like that. If you want to customize it anymore, and I moved my camera so you guys can see better, but click your atom array, go to object, and you can change the actual radius for your cylinders or your spheres. So I like going 2 for both of these. That's what I specifically use, and that's what gave me this real kind of wireframe look. So that's that. And if you want to add a color to this, of course you could do a lot of it in After Effects after the fact, but just to give it a nice base color, kind of little glowy color, what you can do is just double click here to create a new material. Double click on that material, turn off color, turn off reflectance, turn on luminance, and then just choose whatever color you'd like. So I chose orange. So now if you deselect it, here is what that is looking like. Customize your bird however you like it, or whatever object you're animating and you want to put in your scene. Alright, so you've done that, you're ready to add it back into After Effects. Let's see how we're going to do that. So you can click File, Save, we can click File, Open. And remember, before we created that clean export main comp, we exported it from After Effects as a Cinema 4D file. Open that. And now check this out. So if you press play, this is the exact camera movement that is in After Effects. And just to better visualize that, you can open up this null, you can uncheck this camera, and then I'll zoom out here. So here's our camera, and you'll see this is the exact camera movement. This is where the track solid was. So we have the exact copied camera movement from After Effects in C4D. So now literally all we need to do is you can hold down V on your keyboard, go to the project where you were customizing your bird. Here's test. The original one I made, I think, is this one. So all you need to do here, just select all this, Control C, hold down V on your keyboard, go to projects, open up your clean export main comp. This is the one where we have the tracking with the camera and our track solid, and then click Control V. So now our bird is in here. Now you can't just move it like this because these are all keyframed. What you need to do is just hold down Shift, click together your atom array, your eagle, the spine, click Alt G, and that's going to put it in its own little null. And now we can move it wherever we'd like. So let's name this null Eagle Null. And now we can actually grab the axes of this and it'll move the eagle, the animation, anything we like. And to get this full out view, like I said, we're not checked onto this camera. So check off the camera. And now we can move this wherever we'd like. And then holding Alt to rotate your camera, or you can use these controls up here. You can also rotate the bird itself. Place this within the track solid, and the reason why we made this track solid and we're lining it up with the track solid, because this track solid is exactly where we made our track solid in After Effects. Now what we can do now is snap onto the camera, and that's a big step. Make sure you do that before we save it. You see this green check mark for the track solid, uncheck that so that you just see your bird. File, Save, Clean Export Main Comp.C4D, hop into After Effects. You can hide the track solid in After Effects. And now let's just drag and drop in that clean export main comp C4D file. And now check it out. Once we drop in this Cinema 4D thing and line it up just to see the reference, you'll see it's going to be exactly where our tracked comp is. So this is pretty cool. So check this out. As we drag along, now this is how you can kind of cross-reference what it'll look like once it is in After Effects. It's completely tracked where that solid is, looking pretty cool. And now you can make any adjustments you'd like. So say for example, oh, you don't want the bird kind of facing that far to the left, whatever it is, you don't like the orientation of it, hop back into C4D, grab your eagle null, change your rotation, maybe you want it like that, file, save, click After Effects, and then watch, it'll 100% update for you. Once you're satisfied with the positioning, the scaling, everything, the tracking, all you need to do is export that in Cinema 4D. Let me show you how to do that. So we'll hide this for now. This is basically just our reference layer. That's not going to be our actual keep in the comp layer. Go into Cinema 4D. Start at the beginning. You may also want to select this 3D camera tracker, and you see where these keyframes end. Just move to the end of the comp because that's all the frames we want to export. We don't want to export all this. So around 1/16 frame, here's your render options here. Go ahead and click that, and you can go to output. The great thing about exporting from After Effects to Cinema 4D is your width, your height, all this is already going to be set. All you need to do is change this from all frames to manual, and this is at 1/16, so we want to render out the first 116 frames from 0 to 1/16. That's fine. We're just going to be using the physical render. We're not doing with any plugins, so it won't be confusing. Anyone can do it like this. TIFF.PSD layers are fine. Click these three dots here, and now you'll see this is all the frames I did the first time around whenever I was experimenting. Go to a folder. Here's my 3D project files folder. You're going to want to make your own folder, so right click, go to new folder, and I'll name this bird. I'll name this wireframe bird 2. You'll see I already did this once. Open up wireframe bird 2, and you just want to make a file name. You just want to make a file name, so just name it bird, and then as it exports, it'll say bird 1, bird 2. Click save. And one last tip here before you do render, you're going to want to check this alpha channels. It'll render the black background as transparent, so it'll just be the bird. Make sure you check alpha channel under save, and then you're good to go. So just go ahead and click to your render picture viewer. And perfect. So now you're going to see, since this is physical, we didn't do anything crazy with plugins, we didn't do anything with lighting, this is going to render out super quick. All right, so our render is complete, and we're going to go ahead and find that project that we just made. So wireframe bird 2. Here is all the little pictures we just rendered out. So this will be a video once we put it together. To put it together, go to your project bin here. You may need to find it here. Right click in some gray space and go to import multiple files, and then go ahead and navigate to your folder you made with all your rendered outputs. So wireframe bird 2, select the first one, and then just click import. Make sure it's importing as footage. TIFF sequence is fine. Click import. This will basically say, do you want to get rid of the alpha channel? Just say okay. We already exported we already checked the alpha channel in there whenever we're exporting, so just click done. And now we actually have this video TIFF sequence in here. If we just drag that in the timeline, since we linked it with that track solid, we linked it with the camera, this will be perfectly tracked in place exactly where we want it. So if I drag along here, it'll be perfectly tracked in the exact spot that I designated. So that is a little more complicated. That's how you add in an animated 3D object into your tracked sequence, into your tracked footage, your tracked 3D city, whatever it is you're creating. You can rewind the video if you'd like to apply the hologram effects that I've been talking about onto this element as well. All right, guys, so I showed you the ins and outs of creating this cool hologram AR type look like Lil Nas X Panini music video. We did the breakdown. I showed you everything about glitches, tracking, some cool things you can do to spice them up, going into details, and everything in between. I think the only things that I didn't actually show step by step is how to make the city, but like I said, I followed a tutorial on how to do that. Link that below. It's by the guy who actually made the music video, so who better to show that process than him himself. B, I didn't show you how to create any growing trees, because I think that takes its own hour process in itself, but there are some great tutorials there that I'm going to link below. And then C, I didn't show you anything with the mocap suit because I don't own one personally, but I'm going to link some things there below. So anything regarding the tutorial, you can find it here. A lot of the things that are able to do by yourself in your bedroom on a computer, follow this tutorial. I put as much as I possibly could in there. So hopefully you learned something from this. That's always my goal. Anyways, guys, I hope you did enjoy. Comment below what you'd like to see me break down next. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting, and I'll see you guys in the next one.